In the murky depths of World War II, alliances were made between strange bedfellows. Among the most remarkable and controversial was the collaboration between the United States government and Italian-American mobsters to thwart Nazi sabotage. This covert alliance, codenamed Operation Underworld, saw notorious mafia figures, including the infamous Lucky Luciano, working with the Office of Naval Intelligence, ONI, to secure New York Harbor and ensure the safety of America's wartime shipping efforts. What started as a dire situation, fraught with Nazi threats, soon became one of the most astonishing and morally ambiguous partnerships in the war's history. This story dives into the motivations behind the operation, the powerful players involved, and how this unique collaboration helped turn the tide of war while further entrenching organized crime in America. At the heart of this clandestine operation was Charles Lucky Luciano, one of the most powerful and feared crime bosses in America. Born in Sicily, Luciano had risen to the top of the New York Mafia world, eventually establishing the National Crime Syndicate, a coalition of organized crime families that effectively controlled illegal activities across the United States. By the time the U.S. government came knocking on his prison cell door in 1942, Luciano was serving a 30 to 50-year sentence for running a prostitution ring. His power, however, remained intact, with deep roots in the docks of New York Harbor, where mafia control over unions and workers was absolute. Alongside Luciano, other notorious mob figures such as Meyer Lansky, Albert Anastasia, and Joseph Sox Lanza became key players in Operation Underworld. Lansky, a Jewish gangster with close ties to Luciano, was instrumental in managing the logistics of the mafia's involvement, while Lanza used his influence over the Fulton fish market to provide crucial intelligence on potential threats. On the government side, the Office of Naval Intelligence, ONI, was tasked with protecting America's coastal waters from Nazi infiltration. The ONI had been growing increasingly concerned about sabotage after the mysterious fire on the SS Normandy, a French luxury liner converted into a U.S. warship, which was docked in New York Harbor in February 1942. While officially the fire was ruled an accident, suspicions of Nazi sabotage loomed large. The U.S. Navy needed help securing the docks and preventing further sabotage, and they realized the only way to do this was to work with the mobsters who controlled the waterfront. The Navy's goal was clear. They needed to protect New York Harbor from Nazi saboteurs. With the war raging in Europe and the Atlantic Ocean becoming a critical battleground, ensuring the safety of America's shipping lanes and coastal infrastructure was paramount. The threat of enemy infiltration was real, and the Navy was ill-equipped to police the waterfront effectively without inside help. For Luciano and his mob associates, the opportunity was equally clear. Luciano was looking for a way out of his lengthy prison sentence, and collaboration with the government offered him a chance to do just that. If he could use his influence over the docks to assist the Navy, he hoped to secure a reduction in his sentence, and ultimately, his release. For other mobsters like Lansky and Anastasia, the arrangement was a way to legitimize their control over the docks and further their interests without interference from law enforcement. Despite their common interests, the government couldn't openly collaborate with the mafia without causing a major public outcry. The United States was in the midst of a war, and any revelation that the government was working hand-in-hand with criminals would have been a public relations disaster. Moreover, the Navy had no direct access to Luciano, who was locked up in Dannemora prison, far from the waterfront operations they needed to secure. They had to work through intermediaries and trusted figures to broker a deal. The Mafia, too, had reasons to be wary. Organized crime had long operated in the shadows, and openly collaborating with the government could have exposed their operations to greater scrutiny. Trust was a fragile commodity in this relationship, and both sides had to tread carefully to ensure the partnership didn't implode before it could achieve its goals. To begin Operation Underworld, the ONI enlisted the help of Joseph Lanza, the mafia boss of the Fulton fish market, who had extensive control over the workers and union bosses operating in the docks. Lanza was the first point of contact, and through him, the ONI began to secure the cooperation of other mobsters in the waterfront, ensuring that the mafia would monitor for any signs of Nazi activity and prevent sabotage. Soon after, the ONI turned to Murray Gurfein, a lawyer and former prosecutor, who acted as the liaison between the Navy and Luciano. Gurfein worked to broker a deal with Luciano, who, despite being behind bars, still held significant sway over the New York waterfront. Luciano agreed to use his influence to assist the Navy, ensuring that no sabotage would occur on the docks under Mafia watch. In exchange, Luciano hoped to receive a commuted sentence, allowing him to walk free after the war. The arrangement worked. Under the Mafia's watchful eye, New York Harbor remained free of significant Nazi sabotage for the duration of the war. The mobsters used their control over the unions and workers to monitor for suspicious activities, helping to root out any potential enemy agents trying to infiltrate the docks. In return, the Mafia solidified its grip on the waterfront, with Luciano's influence growing even stronger, despite his incarceration. But the operation wasn't confined to New York Harbor. In 1943, as the Allies prepared to invade Sicily, the Navy turned once again to Luciano for assistance. Luciano's connections to his homeland proved invaluable, as he was able to provide intelligence on key locations and contacts within Sicily, smoothing the way for the Allied advance. Mobster Vito Genovese, another powerful Sicilian-American crime figure, also played a role, helping the Allies establish contacts with local Sicilians who would assist in the invasion. While Operation Underworld succeeded in protecting New York Harbor from Nazi sabotage, it also had its share of consequences. The government's reliance on organized crime figures like Luciano only further entrenched the Mafia's control over the docks. Instead of diminishing the mob's influence, the operation inadvertently strengthened it, giving the Mafia even more power over labor unions, shipping, and commerce in the city. Moreover, the exact extent of the Mafia's involvement in the Sicilian invasion remains a matter of debate. While Luciano's intelligence likely helped facilitate the invasion, it also allowed the Mafia to re-establish its power in Sicily, which had been weakened under Mussolini's fascist regime. After the war, the Sicilian Mafia would regain much of its influence, contributing to the post-war corruption that plagued Italy for decades. Operation Underworld was also kept secret for many years, with the full extent of the Mafia's collaboration with the government not coming to light until long after the war ended. When the details finally emerged, they painted a complex picture of a war fought not just on the battlefields of Europe, but in the shadows of America's criminal underworld. Operation Underworld officially ended after the war, but its legacy lived on in unexpected ways. In 1946, as a reward for his cooperation with the Navy, Luciano's sentence was commuted, and he was released from prison. However, he was immediately deported to Italy, where he would spend the rest of his life. Despite his exile, Luciano's influence in organized crime remained strong, and he continued to play a role in international drug trafficking and other criminal enterprises from his base in Italy. For the U.S. government, Operation Underworld was a success in the narrow sense of protecting New York Harbor from Nazi sabotage. The Navy had achieved its goal of securing the docks, and there were no major incidents of enemy infiltration. However, the long-term consequences of the operation were less favorable. By working with the Mafia, the government had inadvertently strengthened organized crime's grip on the city's waterfront industries, leading to decades of corruption, labor racketeering, and illegal activities that would prove difficult to eradicate. In Sicily, the Mafia's role in the Allied invasion allowed it to regain its foothold in the region, contributing to the post-war chaos and corruption that plagued Italy for decades. The Sicilian Mafia's resurgence was one of the unintended consequences of Operation Underworld, and it highlighted the moral ambiguities of wartime alliances. Operation Underworld remains a controversial chapter in American history, one that raises difficult questions about the nature of wartime alliances and the compromises made in the name of national security. The collaboration between the U.S. government and organized crime figures like Lucky Luciano demonstrates the lengths to which the government was willing to go to protect its interests during the war. In the face of a common enemy, traditional notions of law and order were cast aside, and unlikely allies were made. For Luciano, Operation Underworld secured his legacy as one of the most powerful and influential mob bosses in American history. Not only did he survive the war, but he also managed to secure his release from prison and continue his criminal activities from afar. His ability to negotiate with the U.S. government while still maintaining his control over the Mafia is a testament to his cunning and power. For the U.S. Navy, the operation was a necessary evil, a pragmatic solution to a pressing wartime problem. But in the years that followed, The consequences of this alliance would become all too clear, as organized crime continued to wield immense power in American cities, from New York to Chicago. In the end, Operation Underworld serves as a reminder that war often blurs the lines between right and wrong, friend and foe. In the shadowy world of espionage and sabotage, alliances are forged not out of shared values, but out of necessity. And sometimes, the price of victory is paid in unexpected ways.